Wild Health is about optimizing you. We use genomics, blood work, biometrics, microbiome assessment, many other tests, and a conversation with you to come up with a full health optimization plan. What's the perfect diet, exercise, and supplement plan for you and only you? The Wild Health podcast is about optimizing all of us. Here we cover the cutting-edge science that gives you the base to be able to apply the personalized plan we give you as a patient. To sign up as a patient, go to wildhealth.com. Or if you're a physician or health coach and you want to learn how to do this for your patients, we're happy to help as well. Wildhealth.com for all the information on becoming a patient or working with us.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Wild Health Podcast. My name is Steve. I'm one of our health coaches here with Wild Health, and I'm excited for this episode today. We're going to be talking about a host of things. I have a special guest on today, a guy by the name of Regan Archibald. I'm going to read a little introduction, and then we're just going to roll here with a whole lot of topics. So my guest today is Regan, and he is one of the leading peptide, functional medicine, and longevity specialists in the nation. His award-winning center, East West Health, has performed over 10,000 labs and counting. These comprehensive blood labs include 94 important biomarkers that allow Regan and his team to understand the root cause of health issues. Regan is an international speaker and is the author of 9 books, including The Peptide Blueprint and Ageless Future. His podcast, Unreasonable Health, has featured thoughtful leaders from many industries. And when not traveling, Regan can often be found deep in the Utah mountains with his wife, Jessica, or his kids, Zoe, Dominic, and Jonah. Regan, welcome to the Wild Health Podcast, and I'm glad to be hosting you here today, man.
So good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Utah, I've heard there's some snow out west right now. Are you guys getting any out there currently?
Oh, we've got maybe 6 inches in the mountains. The valley, it melts pretty quick, but Colorado is they really got hit. They're having the best November ever.
That's awesome. Yeah. Had some family that went out there for a trip to ski, and the pictures were amazing. So it is not snowing here on the East Coast in Maryland. It is very strangely warm, but I am jealous of the fresh snow y'all have out there. So
we got plenty.
Yeah. So Regan, tell me a little bit about just your background leading into how you started in this space of longevity medicine, we call it, or healthspan focus. What led you down that path, and how did you end up where you're at today?
Well, I grew up on a cattle ranch in Idaho, and Steve, I don't know if you've ever fed cattle in 40 below weather, but after
I have.
After a couple of winters, I was like, all right, this is not for me, and so I wanted to be anything but a rancher when I grew up. And my uncle was a doctor, so I was like, well, I'll just go and I'll be a doctor and just go down the conventional path. But once I got into the University of Utah and was digging into the medical curriculum, and just really excited to just take on the pursuit of conventional medicine, I realized it was missing a lot of the key ingredients when it came to health. And so it was my own personal journey that led me down the road of getting my labs ran because I was sick. My body was achy. I ended up my skin, I had eczema, and 5 doctors just ran just typical conventional labs. And they said, everything looks normal. And I'm sure many of your listeners can relate to that experience when you're like, well, I don't want my labs to be normal. I want to figure out what's wrong so I can actually do something about it. And it wasn't until I went to a naturopathic doctor and he ran the right labs and he said, oh, we know what's going on. You've got Hashimoto's. And so we realized that it was all the chemicals I was exposed to on the farm, the lovely glyphosate that many people are aware of these days. But that's what was causing an autoimmune condition. So it wasn't, anything that, had to do with stress, which is what the doctors just told me it was. It was actually an autoimmune condition. And so I was gluten-free 25 years ago. I was doing all these crazy diet interventions, and it really helped me regain my health. And so I ended up going to an integrated medical school in Hawaii, studied there, and came back and founded East West Health 20 years ago.
Wow, man. And you're right. So many of our listeners, myself included, and our patients, our practitioners here can relate to that. Like that is the journey of many of us where we felt, unseen or unheard by the conventional system. We wanted more answers. And really, like, if anything, we didn't want a Band-Aid. We wanted to get to the root cause of those things. So
Yeah.
we're going to switch the name of this episode from, cattle herder and feeder to longevity specialist. I don't know. We'll think of a clever name there.
Well, Yellowstone has made cattle ranching really cool and like novel and romantic. And so maybe we could, just say, hey, he's still sort of a cattle rancher at heart. So we don't lose the listeners,
A true underdog story. A true underdog story. Well, that's really, really powerful that you're sharing that. And you were diving into some of the nutritional and functional medicine practices before they were trendy like they are now, I guess we'll say.
Yeah.
So we're going to dive into many different things today, but tell me, so you start this practice that y'all have, and you're obviously doing a lot to help a lot of people. What exactly, how exactly does it all work? How do you guys kind of function from a practice standpoint, what your testing kind of looks like and all of that, if somebody were to come, work with you and seek you out for figuring out their root cause?
Yeah. So there's three mottos that we go by. My dad used to say anything worth doing well, or anything worth doing is worth doing well. And so I had to do a lot of jobs twice. And I don't know if any of you have experienced that, but in our medical practice, what we look at is we've always looked at what's the best that I can bring together of the Eastern or the ancient traditions and merge that with some of the Western innovations. And so I've always, combined the two medical models. But the first motto that we go by is no death by neglect. And so what that means is no death by neglect isn't just getting the right labs ran. However, that's the foundational piece. Otherwise, you may go down the wrong pathway because, as you know, Steve, you can have 100 people with the same symptoms and they all have different causes, or even the same disease and they all have, different causes. And so step one is get the right testing at the right time. And then part of the no death by neglect is actually do something about it because, one of the studies, I can't remember what the book is called, but they interviewed people who had major cardiovascular events. And even though these patients had life altering events and they were on death's door and they survived, only 1 out of 10 made lifestyle changes in the long run. And so it's like you also have to put accountability in it. So neglect is also when you don't have the right coaching process. And that's where I appreciate what you're doing as a coach and a mentor to so many clients, because if you don't implement, then it doesn't matter how cool the diagnostics are. So that's kind of motto number one. So we, as you mentioned, we run very comprehensive blood labs, and we have a motto: don't leave any stone unturned. And then part of the testing is VO2 Max, which I'd love to get into with you. But once we have the right tests, the next motto is we believe that when health improves, everything improves. And so we have developed a program design protocol with peptides. So we use just these novel protein structures, and all peptides they naturally exist in the body, and they can go in and turn on genes that are dormant. And so there's peptides for weight loss, like many people are familiar with, the GLP-1s. You finally have that switch that turns off in your brain so you don't feel hungry all the time. It's good for metabolic disease, great for the cardiovascular system, awesome for the brain, the kidneys. Even addiction is, the research is very compelling. The peptides that we use, we work on mitochondrial pathways, we work on the gut, the immune system, and then recovery is a big thing. So when health improves, everything improves. We use peptides to optimize all the major systems of the body: the brain, the gut, the joints, everything. And then the final thing is we want to make your next decade your best decade. And so what that means is imagine where you are today in your life and, what age are you? We'll just say chronological age, because I know you guys do the true age testing. So what chronological age are you now? And then imagine 10 years from now being healthier than you are today. And that's the big thing we're trying to look at is aligning health span with lifespan. But when people get to the end, it's that what Peter Attia calls the marginal decade, where people fall off a cliff and their health suffers. And if you can create a model where every decade people are getting healthier, that's really how we can turn back the clock. And so we do that through regenerative medicine. We do a lot of stem cell therapy, but we also have this longevity fitness protocol. So I've created a tool for one of my mentors and clients who has a goal to live to be 156, and it's called Fitness 50 at age 100. And so these are benchmarks. If anybody's interested, you can go to agelessfuture.com and you can download these Fitness 50 benchmarks and then score yourself. There's 3 columns. So it's fit, fitter, or fittest. And wherever you land on those 3 columns, that dictates, how you're going to move into the next decade of your life. And so that next decade being your best decade, it requires a no pain policy, because without great muscle span and strength span, it's going to be really hard to get to where you want to go. And that's where VO2 max, endurance, balance, proprioception, all these things become critical aspects of the age reversal process. So our protocols are comprehensive. We take every patient through those 3 lenses, and we've got a phenomenal team that helps them get there, similar to what you guys do at Wild Health.
Man, I so love hearing all that, and that sounds absolutely incredible. Gets me a little fired up. I'm gonna be going on that website and checking out the what is it, Fit by 50, or what was it again?
Fitness 50 benchmarks.
Fitness 50 benchmarks. As a person who loves to exercise probably too much from time to time, I gotta check that out and see if I can figure out where I'm at over the years. That's really cool. Love that resource, and I hope some people listening can take advantage of that too.
And Steve, by the way, you look like you're you would qualify for our Fit 25 at the age of 50, because you're under 50, so we're gonna have to ramp it up for you. So we have different benchmarks for you. You'll see that in there though.
Perfect. Love it. I'll definitely check it out. I appreciate you sharing that. Your explanation of it all makes me think of the way that I heard some of this stuff explained one time that really resonated with me when I first started as a health coach. And it was, so many people have come to us they all come to us with very specific goals. I think weight loss is one a lot of people in, especially the United States, struggle with, is obesity and struggling to lose weight for a wide variety of reasons. And one of the things that resonated with me early on, we were, tracking all these biomarkers for people, is like, hey, let's first make the body healthy before we focus on losing weight, right?
Yeah.
Looking at all of the biometrics and the testings and just getting the body happy and healthy before we focus on, hey, let's just dive into weight loss, right? And that was something, the way you described how you're, no stones unturned, is let's investigate everything so that we can really truly find what's holding you back and then helping you move forward. And then once we have all the data, the importance of the accountability and the coaching and the behavior change that goes along with all of those things. So along the VO2 Max line, this is something that I really wanted to dive in here with you today. And you mentioned just like physical health being a big key indicator for people as they're aging. Is what is their true physical health, both from a fitness perspective and then, breaking down into endurance and VO2 Max and strength and balance. When did you first start thinking about VO2 Max with your clients and patients and investigating it further? And what kind of led you to decide that was something you wanted to bring into your practice and focus on?
Well, I've been thinking about VO2 Max for, longer than my practice has been around, because the only way I could get out of farm work is I had to make the basketball team, the football team, the track team. And so I wasn't naturally gifted. And if you look at my genetics, I'm just like a bench warmer, like through and through. So I had to really work hard, and I read a bunch of books on it. And so it was one of the books I read early on where you could measure the volumetric output and oxygenation capacity of a person's body under maximal stress. And I was like, that's fascinating. And so I got into it even in my undergraduate work. But then as we opened the practice, we've had several different fitness protocols we do. We used to actually have, we'd host 5Ks for corporate wellness, and we'd we do some VO2 Max there. And now in our office, we've adopted more technology from the Pinoe device. So I've got two of my trainers, they've got master's degrees in exercise physiology and kinesiology. And so they'll look at the active metabolic rate. So you'll just, sit and breathe for about 10 minutes, and then we can show you your macronutrient profiles, what energy demands your body needs. And I can tell you in our audience, so many of our longevity people, they're in a caloric deficit for too long, and it puts their body under stress. And then we use a body composition machine, and we can see that they lose muscle mass and start putting on visceral fat over time if you're not eating enough. And so it's really important to get that passive test. So on your recovery days or days where you're not as active as the other days, then we put you on the treadmill, or you can do it on a bike, but you go out as hard as you can for about 10 minutes, and it ramps up. And then you look at the metabolic demands on your active days. And those are pretty interesting because you'll see a variance of caloric needs, maybe by about 20 to 25%, depending on the individual. So by utilizing VO2 Max, I became obsessed with it because I realized that if you have higher VO2 Max, your all-cause mortality is, if you're in the top 3 percentile, it's almost impossible to die. So I was like, well, why don't we do that? And I love my trails here in Utah. I love mountain biking, skiing, snowboarding, hiking, and doing those activities requires a pretty significant amount of VO2 Max. And so in order for me to enjoy the activities that I love the most, I realized I probably ought to make sure I've got this cardiorespiratory fitness for my entire patient base and myself. So something I've been very obsessed with.
Love that. So let's circle back here and let's start from just the beginning. Explain to our audience what is VO2 Max and why it's important, just from a very basic level, and then we're just going to go through and unpack it from there.
So just from a basic level, if you think of oxygenation in your body, so you think of how well does the blood circulate, how well can you carry nutrients and oxygen to keep your muscles firing, so that you can actually utilize the full capacity of your muscles for a longer period of time. That's essentially what VO2 Max is. So if you think of a river, and there's a certain velocity that's going down the river, and that velocity predicts how much water volume is coming through the river and into the reservoir or wherever that river goes. And it's a really nice metric to see how much water we have coming off the mountains, and especially in the spring. And it's no different when you do a VO2 Max in your body. Just think of it as your body's total circulation. So your health is dependent on the circulatory systems in your body. And you have all these little micro capillaries. And if they're firing properly, and if you're getting that right blood flow, that's when your VO2 Max is optimized. But it's also where you eliminate that risk of having sarcopenia, where your blood vessels get brittle and your muscles start getting a little bit flabby, and you start replacing muscle with fat. And so a proper VO2 Max is also one of the best indicators of a great circulatory system.
Love that. So measurement methods, you mentioned going to the lab and utilizing a bike or a treadmill. And this is something we talk to our patients about a lot, is when they're going, some places have one or the other, or some give you the option. Do you have a preference? I've heard different things like, hey, you should probably use the one that you're maybe a little bit more used to. Could also depend. If I've got a patient who has, really bad knees or something, and the treadmill's not going to yield results the same way maybe that a bike would, for whatever reason, we might suggest that. But in your experience, what do you see as maybe more effective, or how do you guide people towards making a decision on site when you're doing that?
Well, the biggest thing right now is we prefer the treadmill, because with the bike, there's a different respiratory cadence that you have to measure. So it's a little different setup and takes a little longer. So if somebody can use, even if you can't run, you just put the treadmill at a higher incline. And so you just get to the point where you're utilizing your maximum oxygen utilization, and your heart rate depending on how healthy you are, your heart rate may go up to 200. And I think last time I did mine, went up to about 205, 210. So, and you don't have to run super fast. So it's probably the treadmill is probably the most accurate, and you're going to get the most volumetric demands running. I mean, if you look at the one exercise that requires the most muscle activation, so where you activate every muscle in your body, it's sprinting. And so it just makes a lot more sense if you can do it on the treadmill.
Probably why I get queasy and feel crazy when I do sprint intervals too. So back activating every muscle in the body. I do like the sprint though.
Yeah.
I do like the sprint though. It's a favorite pastime of mine. Awesome. So as far as you mentioned some things earlier that really I think will resonate with a lot of people, which was, we see this all the time. You can figure out kind of a macronutrient and calorie breakdown for people. And a lot of times, people are not eating enough, and that can lead to overstressing the body. That can lead to retaining weight or weight gain. And I think a lot of people hear that and think, okay, maybe that's what's going on. Oftentimes when we're telling people, and I'm encouraging people, hey, we're going to get a little more protein. We're going to, balance out your calories a little bit more, and they're eating a little bit more food. They're concerned. But to have the data to back that up, I think is super cool. What factors individually influence VO2 max on people when you're testing this? What are some of the factors that kind of influence where that number might land for somebody?
Well, if you think of the just total lung capacity, so a lot of people have really weak diaphragms because their breathing is shallow. And one of my teachers, Dr. Miyakawa, she used to say, sick breathing is shallow breathing. And so if you don't have a strong diaphragm, it's going to be really hard to get a great VO2 max. So one of the first things you can start doing is learning how to breathe. It's a really important metric. And actually, the fastest way to die is to stop breathing. So you may as well just figure it out. And
Fair enough.
It's a free drug. I mean, it's
That's
always
right.
there. You can get really loopy just by, you can do holotropic breathing, you do Wim Hof breathing.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter what it's called, but you'll notice a change in your state of being just by breathing. I've been able to actually, when the dogs wake us up at night or the kids or whatever, I've noticed on my sleep app, I've noticed that if I do breathing exercises, it thinks I'm in REM state. And so I'm like, oh no, I was just doing breathing, but it actually mimics that kind of theta brain state that is so good for your body and your brain. So breathing. The other thing that you can do is you want to think of the signaling properties in your body. So you want to, the way I look at cells and the way I look at healing is I look at, okay, well, the very first thing is as long as the cells are communicating properly, that's where you're going to have really great exchanges, just like in your relationships. If you're having good communication and there's no interferences in that communication, you're going to have a better relationship. It's going to continue to evolve. But so the first thing in health is remove the interferences. So if you want to have a great VO2 max, some of you may need to do some detoxification, because I can tell you, people who are packing around an extra 40, 50 pounds, their VO2 max has gone down precipitously. And so just by removing the interference of white fat cells, for example, you can change a lot of expression in that complete cellular signaling. And so, using peptides like adipotide is this really cool peptide that binds on two receptor sites of the blood vessels that feed the white fat cells. And adipotide in the studies, they found that just by using it, you can lose up to 20% of your visceral fat in 30 days. And so if you lose visceral fat, what you're doing is you're turning off some of those inflammatory molecules, because that white fat is metabolically inactive. And so you're spitting out all these pro-inflammatory cytokines, which will minimize your VO2 max. So you can use GLP-1 agonists like we've talked about earlier. Those are great. But there's other peptides like 5-amino-1-MQ that's really powerful because it activates your body's own NAD production, and it turns off this pro-inflammatory pathway called NNMT. This molecule was discovered at the University of San Antonio, Texas. I believe it was 2016 or 2017. And what they found is just by using 5-amino-1-MQ, your body went into lipolysis. So you start burning this metabolically wasteful fat, And then you start activating nitric oxide and the electron transport chain for your mitochondria. And you even get a better contractility in the soleus muscle. So it's a 5-amino-NMQ. Whenever I'm testing my VO2 max, don't tell anybody. It's between you and me, Steve. But I use
keep it
a lot of these peptides right before, and you see this just enormous boost in your overall results. So you want to think about how can you clean up the cell signaling, and I'll do binders and detoxification. That's really helpful. And then the third thing is making sure that you've got the right balance and you've got the right posture, because if you're in pain, your body's going to be limited to the amount that you can push yourself. And Steve, how often do you exercise? I mean, it sounds like you've got a little bit of a problem.
Truthfully, it's like 5 days a week. But it would be a lot more if I didn't have other responsibilities that didn't allow me to hang out in a gym all day.
Yeah, I think you and I used to tell my clients, I still do, I'm like, man, I wish I could exercise for you, because imagine if you and I could just go out and exercise and our clients got healthy. It'd be great. I mean,
that would be awesome. That would work. That would solve a lot of the world's problems, for sure. No, it's for me, it's been both mental and physical wellness for sure. But I generally just literally, I tell people all the time, like, I just do it because I literally enjoy it. It's just fun.
Yeah, it feels so good, because that's the third thing is you've got to work on it. You got to push yourself. And so this is where there's mitochondrial exercises. So for those of you who love to exercise, I look at two ways. You do mitochondrial boost. So you can do this, 4 minutes on, just kind of medium tempo. You're kind of in zone 2, and then you just crank it for 30 seconds, 4 minutes on, crank it for 30 seconds. Those are called mitochondrial sprints. And there's some really interesting work that's been done where they've seen that the mitochondrial expression, which is going to improve your VO2 max, the healthier your mitochondria, the healthier your VO2 max, healthier your nitric oxide production will be. It all goes together. And then the other one you can do is like, it's the Nordic system. And there's Norwegian doctors that realize if you go kind of zone 2 for 4 minutes, and then you push it up to zone 5 for 4 minutes, then zone 2, then zone 5, and you do that for 20 to 30 minutes, all it takes is doing those exercises, one of those, just pick one each week, and 20, 30 minutes, and you're going to see a nice volumetric increase in your VO2 max. And I find just doing a full, if you don't want to get all technical, here's the kind of easy way to do it is you just go full on, do a mile as fast as you possibly can once a week. And that's another easy way that I don't really have a lot of data on it, but that's improved my VO2 max better than anything.
That's awesome. And I love the fact, this is one of the things I really love about training VO2 max is it's super efficient, right? You don't really need a ton of time in the sessions that you do. And that's something that we're talking to people about a lot is, even when I'm like just coaching a client on generally getting into exercise, I'm like, this is actually a great place to start because you can get very efficient amounts of exercise done. And like you mentioned, 20 to 30 minute sessions. When you're advising people on some of those methods and in the interval trainings or, the different styles of that, modality wise, do you find the piece of equipment matters? We're going to use a rower, a bike. Should we run? Is one better than the other? Use what you got. What do you think there?
And I think the easiest way is like get outside, go for a run. I mean, and if you can't run, you can hike up a hill. If you live in a place like Florida where it's so flat, and I'll be there next weekend, or actually I leave in a couple of days, then just like find a tall hotel and walk up the stairs. But I think doing exercise outside, there's something to be said about when the sun's rising and the sun's setting. So if you're asking for the ideal scenario, it would be do something outside that really gets your heart rate elevated. But it also, when you're exposed to the sun at the right time of day, that light is one of the most healing energies that you can be exposed to. And then it resets the melopsin receptors by seeing the sun. And so you're going to sleep deeper, you're going to recover better, you're going to get more growth hormone. or do it at night as the sun's setting, and it works on those same pathways, but it's a mitochondrial activation. The sun has been demonized by, I think some well-intended but misinformed scientists for the last maybe 30, 40 years. And so now we're realizing the sun has this incredible power to generate energy in our body, just like it generates energy for everything around us. If you can do VO2 max training in the sun, it's great. Secondary, I know snow's coming up here, and sometimes it's not very safe to run unless you're in the mountains, and then it's hard. But a rower is phenomenal. I mean, it's really hard to beat a rower because you're pushing yourself. And I don't mind treadmills, but they're very boring, and the springiness, it's just hard on the body. It's not a natural run. I like to run backwards on the treadmill. Thank you, Ben Patrick. I just kind of push that thing backwards for about 10 minutes without it turned on, or if I want to turn it on to like 3 miles per hour, 4 miles per hour, and do some backward sprints with it at a full incline. That's my favorite way of using a treadmill, but that's a way you can do it. But I like the rower. If you want to do a bike, Peloton can be pretty motivating because you like see your metrics. So that's another way you can train. But whatever modality is you like, do it. If it's pickleball, do that. But wear your Garmin watch so you can see that your heart rate's staying up. And you may want to leave kind of the geriatric court and go to the younger players. I don't mean geriatric by any means. That's like, it's a positive thing because I have so many of my clients who are 60s, 70s, 80s, and they love pickleball. So, and you see their heart rates, and that's a really good VO2 max training. But the number one thing for VO2 max is find an activity you love, and then it's something you'll keep coming back to over and over again. And it's not like then it doesn't feel like work. So the best exercise you can do is exercise that's fun.
Yeah, I love that, and couldn't agree more with the power of the sun. It's funny, like I remember just first learning about, the true power of the sun, and, thinking logically, every time anybody walks outside and it's a nice, warm, sunny day, you have that instant, like, you feel better. And so there's got to be something there. Saw a funny quote my wife sent me the other day that was like, when our computer's acting up and it's cranky, we, push the restart, we unplug and plug it back in, and it's better. It's like taking your kids and putting them outside is like the unplug, plug back in. They're instantly doing a lot better at that point. And so I think there's definitely something to be said about taking your exercise outside and, providing for VO2 max training, figuring out the modality that works for you. One of my favorite / least favorite things to use is the assault bike.
Those are brutal. Yeah,
the devil's tricycle, we call it, but you can
just
accomplish
1 minute and you're dead.
Yeah, you're done. You're done. There's a lot of good utility there. So great. I love that. I'm curious here, as you're, working with people on improving VO2 max, you're tracking it in the lab with those things. Is there any other testing, maybe blood markers or other things you see that lead you to believe maybe prior to somebody getting a VO2 max that there could be an issue, or as you're going along and you're tracking it, blood markers or other biometrics that you're thinking about along the way that you want to see trend positively as well? They're going to correlate along with that.
Well, I think if you look at your CO2 levels, that's going to be a critical marker. And then your sodium potassium ratios, that lets you know how well your cortisol and aldosterone secretions are. So if you have really low sodium potassium ratios, you're going to have a hard time getting the horsepower needed to move the blood. And then you want to look at all the electrolytes, the profile. So anion gap is a nice equation that you can see. If your anion gap's too high, your pH levels in your blood are probably going to be so your blood's going to be too acidic, so your pH will be too low. And I find those are kind of the core, but you can even go deeper and look at your creatinine output. You can look at your ALT and AST and just to see if your whole metabolic engine is functioning properly. And even our clients who have blood sugar dysregulation, maybe they're pre-diabetic when they start with us, the VO2 max is really impacted by that, because anytime your blood sugar goes up and then it goes down, it's damaging your blood vessels. And those endothelial cells are very sensitive to that movement. So just by stabilizing any kind of metabolic disease and reversing that, you're going to see a massive jump in VO2 max. So those are kind of the core things. And then of course you can you can kind of go deeper in. And if there's, different hormonal imbalances, that's going to impact your VO2 max. If you've got anything in the inflammatory area, that's going to interfere. So anything in the blood where you see an interference, it will definitely impact the VO2 max.
Awesome. And then I'm assuming subsequently, as we're working on VO2 max and improving that, a lot of these things are going to trickle down and trend in a positive direction.
It's crazy. All rivers lead to the same ocean. Mother Teresa was quoted that, but related to religion, in health, it's like when you work on the circulatory system, that's your river that leads to the ocean of healing. And I think it's overlooked, and we get so nuanced with, we got to get rid of the Lyme or the mold exposure. We get crazy in functional medicine. And I'm guilty of this myself, because it's so fun to go down that hunting and that journey. And we found the one thing, but actually it's not the one thing, it's everything. And I think when we fix the cardiorespiratory system, we fix the vascular system, everything works better.
Totally. And I've been guilty of the same thing. You get excited about certain things, or you're geeking out about something, and then, you realize even something like, hey, we need to work on this person's mind, as a trickle-down effect to a lot of this stuff too. I mean, it's incredible. So you're saying resonates greatly, and I'm sure will resonate with a lot of people that listen to this. So VO2 max outcomes, what levels are we looking at here? Is there kind of an optimal range of levels you're looking for? Does that vary by age? And is there kind of a danger zone where low levels become a serious concern for people?
Well, so when you're looking at VO2 max, there's some people who are so high up there in like 70s, 80s. We're really happy if our clients can get into the 40s, like mid 40s, lower 50s is pretty phenomenal as far as the results go. And then we kind of have this running scoreboard in our office where we can measure someone's VO2 max versus their age. And so what we use in our technology is we actually think that it's my opinion, and I don't have, sorry, Ryan Smith, I love you, but the true diagnostics are really important, because you're looking at all of these, the Horvath clocks and the Dunedin pace and the Grimm age. And I think those are really important, looking at those methyl groups, but I've seen a lot more correlation with vitality and health when I look at the carotid artery scans. So we'll do a intima media thickness test, and that gives us the age of somebody's blood vessels, and then we'll stack that age with the VO2 max. So you can actually have, as a 50-year-old, you can have a cardiorespiratory functionality of a 25-year-old, and that's really what we're looking at when it comes to age reversal, because our goal at East West is we want all of our clients to be at least 10 years younger biologically than they are chronologically. And unfortunately, the true diagnostics, it's still a little there's too many variants. But with the cardiorespiratory, that's when I know that they're going to have the lifespan met with healthspan, but also there's an enjoyment in life because you can experience physical activity. And so that's the real score we're looking at, is what's the age of your overall cardiorespiratory fitness.
Love that. And it's, what you're talking about is the beauty of pulling in all of these different testing modalities to, again, leave no stones unturned, to use your words from earlier, to be able to really assess and see where they're at. So that's awesome. So you guys you have like a leaderboard of numbers at the office?
Yeah, because there's HIPAA laws and things like that, we do protect it, but we do have a couple of our clients in the longevity Olympics, with Brian Johnson and the rejuvenation Olympics, and they're doing great. And then on the VO2 max, our biggest gap is 30 years, where someone's 30 years younger, maybe 31 years, excuse me. She's 31 years younger chronologically from her chronological age versus biological age. She's like 12. So it's really cool to see.
I am super jealous. That is not me. I was a little bit disappointed with my last test, but we're doing things to move in the right direction.
I'll tell you a little secret. I had to actually cut down on my because I would do these weekend slugs, 30 miles and, crazy vert. And all I did for 90 days is I cut that back and I shaved off 12 years. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
not, it's less is more for us.
Totally. I have been training decently hard since I was probably 16 or 17 between sports and different things. And now at 36, I think I've embraced it. One thing over time that's easier said than done is value the intensity, not the volume at which you do things from time to time. And you can have sessions where you're putting it in, but it doesn't have to be so much about just big volume as it is and that's what I love about VO2 Max training, and something I've embraced a lot more recently because we mentioned it's efficient. Maybe it doesn't take as much time. I don't have to accumulate the same volume to really improve the cardiovascular system and overall health.
Yeah.
So as we think about coming VO2 Max and introducing it into more and more people to be able to use as a biometric, what does your own personal fitness regimen look like related to VO2 Max? When you're you've played around with it a lot, it sounds like. What does that look like for you?
Well, it looks different based on where I do travel at least 2, maybe 3 times a month. I do a lot of teaching and workshops, and then we host longevity retreats. I just got back from Lisbon. We brought some of our regen medicine docs, and we did a bunch of cool regen on a Ritz-Carlton yacht out of Lisbon, and it was really fun. So, but in general, what I do, I exercise every day. I haven't taken a day off probably in about 14, 15 years. It just is easier for me. I'm not pushing hard every day, but I have 4 days out of the week where I lift weights, and I do a lot of the knees over toes. Every year I set benchmarks, and so I have a year long where I'm going to be working on a certain metric. And so on my 45th birthday, I said, well, I could touch the rim and kind of dunk a tennis ball almost when I was in high school. Why can't I do that now as a 45-year-old? And so I started working on my vert, and I realized I got to get rid of pain. And so then I started working on vertical, and I was able to increase my vertical jump by 7 inches within 6 months. And now I can dunk a full basketball as long as you lower the rim for me. But
me too.
But that is one of the things I've kept going, because you're doing a lot of plyometrics and jumping, and you're working on proprioception. And so that's something that I do. I mix it in on those 4 days I'm lifting weights. And in between my squats or my lunges, or I do a lot of hack squats. I find those are really good for the knees. I'm doing backwards walking. I'm pulling the sled. Those things are great, but in between the sets, I'm doing plyometrics, and that is where I'm getting my heart rate up. I'm doing some HIIT. And then on Wednesdays is always my Pilates day. I call it Pilates Purgatory. My wife has this, she's phenomenal Pilates. And so we have 2 reformers, and so either she'll coach me or I'll do one of her videos. And that's just kind of my recovery day. We go for hikes. Every day I walk or hike at least 10 miles, and then I'm doing some kind of sprinting at least 3 times a week. It may be a mile, it may be fast 3 miles. The most I'll ever do is about 5 miles these days, and at one time. I just find it's diminishing returns. So I plan on doing either a VO2 Max or mitochondrial workout twice a week. 20 minutes to 30 minutes max. And then some days, if I really am feeling in the groove, I'll do kind of a zone 2 for about, hour and a half to 2 hours. And that's once a month. And I find that cadence gets the job done and really keeps me from overdoing it, and, keeps me out of pain, but also it has allowed my VO2 Max to continually improve.
Love that. And I think that's the take-home message that I wanted people to hear is practical application of this isn't this huge mountain that we need to climb. It's, relatively low time commitment and barrier of entry for people on this, and the results and the positive benefits to your health that we already spoke about earlier are huge here, where you spend the 20 to 30 minutes of this 2 times a week even, and you can yield fantastic results to move yourself forward. So thanks for sharing that. I love that. And I think that is people always are listening and wanting to hear some takeaways and things that they can use in their own own practice. Any other advice you would give to somebody who's pursuing improving their VO2 max and they haven't really thought about it up until now?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is nitric oxide is this signaling gas that's very fascinating because it activates the blood flow. And so there's a couple things that people can think about when considering how to best boost your nitric oxide. And it's not always the, L-citrulline, L-arginine, sometimes that can be almost like counterproductive. But one of the things that I love are the peptides BPC-157 and thymosin beta-4, because what those do is they work on that activation of nitric oxide. They have what's called the vascular endothelial growth factors. They also have this BDNF production, so you get this nice nootropic effect in your brain. But those are some really great ways. And then beets are really important. You can eat arugula, spinach. These are great ways that you can really boost your nitric oxide. And for you people who enjoy your time in the bedroom with your lover, then nitric oxide is your best friend. And so there's some nice fringe benefits from working on these pathways. And even like if you want to go deeper into it, like oxytocin is a great peptide you can use as a nasal spray. You can use like PT-141, even a microdose of tadalafil. Those are all really good things to boost your VO2 max. And we've seen a nice output when you start measuring it just by using some of those little hacks. But you got to eat clean, you got to have detoxification, and then you got to work on things every single day to get the blood flow where you want it.
Love it. Super helpful. And I appreciate you sharing some time with us today. And thankful to have somebody like you in our space of longevity medicine, we'll call it. I still haven't come up with a great word for all of this stuff, but because it's like you said, it's a mix of a lot of things. But
yeah,
appreciate sharing this space with you. And within that thought, wanted to ask you, what are you most excited about in our space? What gets you excited to continue to get up every day that maybe is coming soon, or maybe we already have it and it just gets you excited?
Well, I just returned from Genius Network. I was there in last weekend in Arizona, and Joe Polish, great friend, amazing entrepreneur, also a fellow biohacker and working on longevity, but he brought in RFK, and he brought in Jordan Peterson, and it was just like, it's phenomenal because the thing I'm most excited about is this opportunity that we have to, use his phrase, which is make America healthy again. But we actually, we have a chance to make the biggest difference for our kids right now. And I think that's what really, I was going to go down what I'm usually like just geeked out on a new peptide, like ACE31 is this new myostatin inhibitor that we're seeing like massive muscle growth. But really after hearing RFK speak and seeing all these great things in the United States happening, you're going to see the doors open for longevity medicine, for real health, but it's also going to start with RFK. I mean, he knows the chemicals. He's sued a lot of these companies, and he's going to help us get rid of the junk, get rid of the garbage from our kids' food. He's going to help us clean up the environment, and the cool thing about it is we have a chance. I was talking with Callie Means about being on the coalition force with peptides, and instead of the FDA, which seems to put a real restriction on anything natural, because medicine's always been leveraged in favor of the big pharmaceutical companies and allopathic, conventional, more like the crisis care model. That's going to shift, and we have 4 years to get that job done, at least to put the foundation in so it can never go away again. So that's really what I'm most excited about. How about you, Steve? What are you most excited about right now?
Man, it comes back to sort of what you talked about earlier, and it's funny that I'm going to highlight something you said that has been I've talked about with a couple of our providers, and something I think about is when I first got into this space, I was thinking, okay, functional medicine, eating, sleeping better, all these things, that is the only thing that matters. And the longer I've done it, I feel like I'm most excited that what really is happening is creating this intersection of functional medicine and Western medicine and Eastern medicine, Chinese medicine, like bringing that all together and just taking the pieces of all of that and bringing in the right tool at the right time for the right person and truly making it personalized. And the more we expand our knowledge and we open our arms to all sides of medicine and then pull in the right things that we need with the right time and the right testing to uncover these root causes, I think that's what gets me most excited, is not being siloed in one section, but saying, hey, there are useful things here. There are useful things here. And how do we as practitioners be the bridge to all of that? And we're starting to do that a lot more and more, and seeing, where somebody maybe uses something like a GLP-1 in a small dose to shut off the voice, but now we're also coaching them on proper nutrition too. And we're sleeping better. Like, just intersecting all these things together, I think really gets me excited, because that's where I've really seen a lot of people have these strides and start to make the changes to really transform their life.
Well said. I couldn't agree enough. In Chinese medicine, the emperor, the Yellow Emperor's classic, if you read the Neijing Su Wen, he had 3 goals. And goal number 1 is he wanted to improve vitality. And so he wanted robust workers, armies. He wanted to protect the kingdom. Rule number 2 was he wanted virility. So he wanted to have lots of kids. He wanted to grow the empire that way. And then rule number 3 was he wanted immortality. And so the whole medicine was built around that framework. And so it's so easy to pull that framework in and say, okay, well, now we have a lot more science and data, and let's just make it happen. Now is the best time to actually focus on your health, because we have more tools at our disposal, and we know what works, we know what doesn't better than we ever have. So yeah, well said, Steve. I mean, what a time to be alive, right?
It gets me excited every single day, and I feel very blessed to be in this space with people like you and our practitioners here, and just all over, people thinking about health in this way, where, we're not just going to settle for one answer. We're going to uncover root causes, and we're going to do our best to get to know our patients on a personal level and really figure out where their barriers lie and how to figure out how to get through those. And, on the note of like exciting things, do you have any technologies that you guys are using, or even things you've heard about that are up and coming that excites you in the space?
I think the most exciting is we're creating these bots or virtual agents. So I have a Regan bot that's got all the books I've written, all the data. And so that saves me a lot of time, because my team can just ask the bot, and then the bot can put together, different protocols. And that's been really fun. I just like the AI as an assistant. And so everyone on my team has a bot. And then our company has this like repository where it's like the keeper of all things, and AI as a collaborator in medicine. I mean, I can scour 10 times the research now than I could before AI was where it is today. And it's getting better all the time. Today is the worst it will ever be, which is crazy to think about.
It's crazy to think, because it's on the same notion. It's made me so efficient with understanding science and reading things and summarizing and creating resources for people. Like the turnaround time for things is a lot easier with the help of an AI assistant. Like, it's so true. And we're grateful to have things like that. Like, I could not agree more. It's been a welcome addition to medicine for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
And it's like you said, it's only going to get better. I never thought about it that way. It's like, this is the worst it's going to be. It's crazy. Well, Regan, I appreciate you setting the time aside with us today, and super grateful to make this connection and to share time with you today. And thanks for educating us on many, many things. Congratulations on all that you guys are doing. Appreciate it, and love to connect again sometime soon.
Absolutely. Happy to help, and congrats to you guys at Wild Health. I mean, you guys were the trendsetters early on. And so, we're all of us are standing on the shoulders of giants, and you guys are one of those big giants that have paved the way. So thank you very much.
Appreciate it. I think it's going to take all of us bouncing ideas off and working together to continue to push this style of medicine forward and to help as many people as we can, man.
That's it. Yep.
On that note, for Regan, I'm Steve Weatherholt, and you guys are listening to the Wild Health Podcast. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks so much for listening to the Wild Health Podcast. If you want more daily health education, be sure to follow us on Instagram, which is filled with health optimization how-tos, grocery shopping lists, guided breathwork posts, myth debunking, and so much more. You can find us at Wild Health MD on Instagram.